Okay, guys, this video is the second video in a series that I'm doing on can we prove the things in the Bible? And what I'm doing is I'm looking at the hardest things to believe and trying to come up with a reason to believe them. Trying to show people that the facts are there, trying to study the story, trying to learn the lessons. You know, it is what it is. And if I can't prove that it happened, if I can't prove that it's true, I can prove that it's not untrue. I don't know if I said that right. Anyways, let's get into what I have. All right. So one thing I'm going to say is, man, when I did the last video, it was like 5-6 hours of just research. It went real smoothly, real simple. This one, man, it was probably about 16 or 17 hours of research because there's just so much out there connected to the name Lazarus. And a lot of it really has nothing to do with his resurrection. I mean, it does because it's his story, but it was overwhelming at first. And then I sat myself down and I thought about what am I trying to do and what am I trying to say in this video. And all I'm trying to talk about in this video was what went down when Jesus brought Lazarus back to life. Like, who was Lazarus and why did Jesus bring him back to life? And we're going to talk about all that. So I'm just focusing on Lazarus. I got 3 points I'm going to cover. Point number 1 is Lazarus and his two sisters, Mary and Martha. What was their relationship with Jesus? Point number 2 is going to be the death of Lazarus and him being brought back to life. And point 3 is going to be what happened to Lazarus after he was brought back to life. My tongue is really blue from this Kool-Aid that I got earlier. It really turned my tongue blue. All right, so the name Lazarus means God has helped. I don't know, I read something where they were saying that his name was prophetic, but I can't find anything about that in the Bible, so I'm not even going to focus on it. Okay. Jesus and Lazarus and Mary and Martha. Alright, so Lazarus, Mary, and Martha lived in a town called Bethany. Bethany was about 2 miles southeast of Jerusalem. So if you stand on the Mount of Olives and you stand in the direct middle of the road and you face towards Jerusalem and then you turn all the way around 180 degrees and you face the opposite direction, you're going to face Bethany, right down the other side of the hill. The population was probably 20 families, roughly. So 20 families, you're probably thinking like 5 to 10 people per family at most. Maybe so you're looking at like 100 people. But Jesus liked to stay there. Like, there's references in Luke and John both where Jesus is passing through there. Like, and it makes sense that he would be passing through there going to Jerusalem for Passover and all that. And he goes to their house when it describes the 2 times it describes them at Mary and Martha's house and Lazarus's house, they're feasting, they're reclining, they're joking, they're talking, they're learning, they're treating each other like family. And you know, it even says in here that Jesus loved Mary, Martha, and Lazarus. Jesus loved them. That's like, later on we're going to talk about it. How much Jesus loved him. And, yeah. So, when Lazarus got sick, the first thing that Mary and Martha did was send a message to Jesus. Now Jesus, so they're in Bethany. Jesus is down by the Dead Sea where he was baptized, doing whatever he was doing with his guys. When the messenger came and told him, the message was, the one that you love is sick. And Jesus' reaction was, hey guys, Lazarus is sick. And he waited 2 days before he left. He didn't leave for 2 days. Somebody that you love is sick and dying. And he's like, all right, I'm going to kick back. So the other one is Luke 10, 38 through 42. You can look that up. Mary, Martha's and Lazarus' sister, is the one who anointed Jesus' feet and wiped his feet with her hair. And Judas got mad at her and was like, hey, you could have sold that for a whole bunch of money. And Jesus was like, whoa, dude, whoa. You know what I mean? Like, we can always help the poor. Like, we can always do good deeds. Yeah, so... Lazarus. So who was Lazarus to Jesus? Lazarus was a disciple of Jesus. And Lazarus provided a safe and comfortable place for Jesus to be as a disciple. He fed Jesus. He gave Jesus a home, like a place, not a home, like Jesus started off in Nazareth and then moved to Capernaum and then started going all over the place. And Bethany was just one of the places where he would land. And he always had a place to be there. He always had a place. And I'm sure they grew up together. You can go to the end, to a church tradition that says that Lazarus was probably almost the exact same age as Jesus. They probably grew up together. They probably knew each other since they were kids. That's just what I'm seeing here. You know what I mean? Like, they probably were really, really close, like family. With the way that it describes how much Jesus loved them, like he loved them like they were his family. They were his people, man. Mary and Martha were probably widows because they were living with their brother. And their brother was providing for them. Like, he helped them too. He provided them with a safe environment to be. And I imagine they weren't, I imagine they were poor, but I imagine they were better off than most. Or some, in that little village, I'm sure. Because they're always, providing food for people. And Jesus had a crowd with him. He had a crowd with him. He had groups of people with him everywhere he went. It just couldn't be avoided. All right, so Lazarus, one of Jesus' best friends. And I say that because you look at his apostles, he was their master. He couldn't really be friends with them. Like, he would say things to them and they wouldn't understand, and like they didn't really know him. But Lazarus, I think, probably knew Jesus his whole life. Like, Jesus could be himself around Lazarus. You know what I mean? The same with Mary and Martha, but mostly with Lazarus. Lazarus. I don't know why I keep saying it like that. But he could be himself. They were friends. They were close. They were friends. So, they sent for Jesus. Okay? John 11:1 is where we're going to start. John 11:1. And I'm reading through from the ESV study Bible. 11:1. Now a certain man was ill, Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to him, saying, Lord, him who you love is ill. But when Jesus heard it, he said, This illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. All right. So Jesus' response was, he's not going to die. He's just going to bring glory to God by helping me to be glorified. Jesus is glorified because he proves that he can conquer death. He resurrected Lazarus. He resurrected himself. He brought back to life 3 people. Lazarus was not the only person that he brought back to life. He brought back a little girl and a little boy too. But all of them had just died. Lazarus was dead for 4 days. Decomposition had already set in. I guarantee he already had a stench. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. That's really important. Jesus loved Martha and her sister Mary. Not to be confused with Mary Magdalene. Different Mary. And Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. Then after this he said to the disciples, Let us go to Judea again. Okay. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you, and you are going there again? Jesus answered, Are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him. Okay. Here's what was just said. All right. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he kicked back for 2 days. And then at the end of those 2 days, he was like, all right, guys, let's go now. And the disciples were like, no, dude, no. Like, we just ran from there. They had just ran from there because Jesus was standing up there telling people that he was God and they were going to stone him. And so they had to get out of there because they were going to kill him. And so the disciples are like, nah, dude, like, don't you remember those guys were just trying to kill us? And Jesus is like, aren't there 12 hours in a day? There's just sets in time, you know what I mean? Like when it's nighttime, you can't see what you're doing, so you're not working. So as long as you have the light, when the daytime is there, use that time and get done the things that you have to get done. What he's saying is that we have stuff that we have to do and we have to get it done while we have the time, because time is running out. And I think that has a bunch of different meanings to it. I think Jesus was talking about the end of him was coming. This is only a few months away from when he was crucified. Just a few months away. You know, we can guess Lazarus died somewhere between December and April of the year that Christ was crucified. Because in chapter 10, Jesus was at the feast of Dedication, which is in December. And then in chapter 12, it's the Feast of the Passover. Yeah, it's the Feast of the Passover. So he got killed. Lazarus got sick and died sometime between December and April. So Jesus is like, hey, dude, you know, we're running. He tells this parable about how we're running out of time. We only have a certain allotted amount of time to get done the stuff that we have to get done. And this is one of the things that we have to get done. We have to go. All right. The disciples said to him, he said, after saying these things, he said to them, "Our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him." The disciples said to him, "Lord, if he has fallen asleep, he will recover." Now Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought that he meant taking rest in sleep. Then Jesus told them plainly, "Lazarus has died, and for your sake I'm glad that I was not there, so that you may believe. But let us go to him." So Thomas, called the twin, which is also Didymus, said to his fellow disciples, "Let us also go, that we may die with him." All right, so that statement by Thomas is just Thomas. Thomas is kind of aloof, and he's real emotional and straightforward, and just he's an odd character. But I don't want to focus on him because we're talking about Lazarus. So Jesus is telling his disciple, he's like, "Dude, all right, guys, Lazarus is dead. And I'm glad that he's dead, because now that he's dead, I have a chance to show you that I am God. I have a chance to show you the power that I have." I am glad that I was not there. Insinuating that if he had been there, he would have stopped the death. He loved Lazarus. Okay. Now when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Okay. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console them concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, but Mary remained seated in the house. So Jesus shows up at some sort of a memorial service for Lazarus. I think there was like a certain amount of time that the Jews had to mourn a person, like 7 days or something, so it was probably what they were doing. Jesus shows up. Mary and Martha are sitting in these chairs. They look over, they see Jesus, and Mary just turns her head and looks the other way. Martha gets up, she walks out, and she walks straight towards Jesus. And Martha says to Jesus, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." She was angry. Her grief. Like there's emotion in this, what she's saying. She's attacking Jesus. She's saying, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. You could have saved him. She knew that they told him in time. She knew he would have made it. Let's see what happens next. But even now, I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. And Jesus said to her, "Your brother will rise again." Martha said to him, "I know that he will rise again in the resurrection on the last day." And Jesus said, "I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe this? That's what Jesus said. Do you believe this? She said to him, "Yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who is coming into the world." Do you believe this? Man, that's a convicting question. He just said, "Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die." Do you believe me? I don't want to sit here and unpack what that verse means because I don't know. I would have to spend days reading that to even be ready to talk about that. But, so let's move on. Okay. So Lazarus died. He's in the tomb for 4 days. Okay. Jesus goes out, commands him, he's resurrected. Okay? Bam. So, yeah, so, then comes the story about how, alright, so Jesus, sorry guys. So Jesus, came to the tomb. It was of clay. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. And Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days." Okay, so back then, people were really, really superstitious. And there was a superstition back then that when a person would die, the soul would hover over the body for 3 days and waiting for a chance to get back in. And on the 4th day is when decomposition really takes hold and starts in full force. That's when the spirit disappears. So what she's saying, he's been dead 4 days, there will be an odor. She's saying that his spirit's already gone. Don't you know that? His spirit's already gone. Jesus says to her, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" That's not what he told her. He told her that he asked her if she believed something that he said. But if you believe, you can see the glory of God. This is what he's saying. Your brother's not going to stay dead. Like, they're not understanding that they're human. They're so limited in their knowledge. Like, they don't understand that he's standing there in front of them, about to resurrect this dude. Just bring him back to life like nothing happened. At the exact point where everybody thinks it's impossible. They would have believed it on the 3rd day or the 2nd day or the 1st day, but on the 4th day, they didn't want to believe it. So they took away the stone, and Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me." When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. So I imagine kind of like a mummy just hopping out, you know what I mean? All I guess, I don't know. That's a pretty cool story. You know, that's a pretty cool story. And I think, as far as people who say that story can't be true, there's no way that story is true. Bill Nye the Science Guy, one of his favorite arguments, one of his favorite things is, as soon as you introduce a miracle, it's not science. It can't be real. Take the word miracle and call it something else. Call it quantum anomaly. That's a thing. Quantum anomaly is a miracle. Okay? If you take your fist and you punch it on a coffee table, 10 million to the 10th power times, one of those times your hand is going to pass completely through the table and miss all the particles and come back out without breaking the table. All right? That's a miracle. People coming back to life from being dead is not something that science can say has never happened. People come back from the dead all the time. Not after being dead for 4 days. But what I'm saying is that you believe in Jesus, you believe in who he is, then this story is astounding. Because it's not the same as the other two, where he just brought the kids back to life, who had just died. You know, this is something real. This is him using Lazarus as an example of his power. That's what that was. He even said it in his prayer. He's like, I just want these people to believe who I am. Lazarus, come out. And Lazarus came out. Boom. This is who he is. You know? I believe that. I know who Jesus is. I know what he's capable of. I know the way he taught. I know that that's exactly what Jesus would have done. The whole reason why Jesus didn't go back to Bethany for 2 full days was because he was letting Lazarus die. He allowed it to happen so that he could show all those people who he was, because he had been telling them and telling them and telling them and telling them, and they hadn't gotten it yet. And he was like, okay, in their belief system, the spirit is gone on the 4th day. Decomposition sets in. There's no chance for resuscitation. Excuse me. I'll let him be dead for 4 days. And he let them be mad at him. You know, Martha came up and was probably yelling at him like, blah, 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 blah. You know, not blah, 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 but you know what I mean. Like, mad at him in his face. That's how I imagine her. She was like, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have been dead. She was blaming him for her brother's death. That's intense. All right. So I went ahead and devoted the third point to what happened after Lazarus. I want to cover some of the church tradition because I think it's pretty cool how it ties into other sections. I didn't go too deep into it. If you want to, I've included some verses here, and you know, you can do your own research. Like, the information is out there. I'm just going to cover some of the church tradition about what happened to Lazarus after he was resurrected. So in John 12:9, it says, when the large crowd of Jews learned that Jesus was there, so Jesus was in Bethany at Mary and Martha's house, and Lazarus was there reclining at the table with him. And the crowd, it says, when the large crowd of Jews, so I think that was like Jesus's fandom. You can, if you know anything about the New Testament, you know that Jesus was always trying to get away from them. You know, like he's always like, like all these people were just always following him around, wanting him to do all these miracles, and it was frustrating him because he was trying to get his message out. He was trying to accomplish his mission, and he just had this huge crowd of people chasing him down all the time, kicking in doors, and climbing on top of houses and ripping off the tiles and lowering people down so that they can get healed, you know. And it was just, I'm sure that was exhausting for him. He probably had a really hard time. Anyway, so it says, when the large crowd of the Jews learned that Jesus was there, that's in Bethany at Martha and Mary's house, they came not only on account of him, but also to see Lazarus, whom he had raised from the dead. Okay, so word had gotten out. So these people want to see Lazarus. Lazarus died, and Jesus brought him back. We want to see this dude. It was amazing. He had been dead for 4 days. And Lazarus was alive, reclining at table, eating and grubbing with Jesus. Okay? So the chief priests made plans to put Lazarus to death as well, because on account of him, many of the Jews were going away and believing in Jesus. See, that's what's cool, was Lazarus came back from the dead, and instead of being filled with pride and being like, "Ooh, I came back from the dead," and like being all crazy. He was giving glory to Jesus, dude. He was giving glory to Jesus. He was bringing people to believing in Jesus. Like that's cool. That's powerful. That's exactly what Jesus wanted to happen. That was God's plan from the beginning. He said that so that you can see the glory of God. He wanted to make people's eyes open and be like, "Oh, that's God." Okay, people were coming from far away to see this. So the Pharisees and the religious leaders get together. And that's pretty much the last mention of Lazarus in the Bible. This is where church tradition starts. So Lazarus left Bethany and went to Cyprus, to a town called Kition. It's Kition in Cyprus, which is, I think that's where Paul's from. Tarsus, I think it's Cyprus, I don't know. Anyway, so he moved to Cyprus, and it's said that in the 40s or 50s, Paul and Barnabas traveled from Jerusalem to Cyprus. And it said that when they did that, they ordained Lazarus as the first bishop of Kition. So he was the first bishop of the church there. All right, and Lazarus was really close to Jesus during Jesus' lifetime and Jesus' family. It's said that the Virgin Mary and him wrote letters back and forth and communicated. It's the Virgin Mary and John, the disciple John, got on a boat to sail to Cyprus to go see Lazarus and got blown off course by a storm. And this is 52 AD. Mary and John get blown to Athos, Greece, and they discovered a mountain called Mount Athos. All right, so according to tradition, Lazarus lived in Cyprus for 30 years, and he died at the age of 60. And that's why I said he was probably the exact same age as Jesus. Because if he died at 60 and he lived in Cyprus for 30 years, that means he was 30 years old when he moved to Cyprus, which means he was probably 29 when he died, which is probably about the same age that Jesus was when Jesus resurrected him. Jesus might have been a little bit older. But that's church tradition. That's not something I can really back. It's all the Eastern Orthodox, man, they really they have holidays for Lazarus and like a throne and this big old church. So in 890 AD in Cyprus at Kition, they dug up an ossuary box and a whole bunch of stuff that had to do with Lazarus. And that was his tomb. And they transported him over to Bethany, where he's from. But and some of the stuff got lost when the Ottoman Empire came in. Some of the stuff got sent up to the church in Russia. Some of his bones and stuff. But it was his bones and stuff like that. And on the ossuary box, it said, Lazarus, 4 days dead, friend of Christ. That was the inscription on the ossuary box. So this dude moved up there and was telling this story to people. And Paul and Barnabas ordained him as the first bishop there. Bishop is the same word as elder or pastor or leader. You know what I mean? Like there's a bunch of different words you can use besides bishop. It's the information they got that from was probably written in Greek, and there's a bunch of different meanings. You can pull out a thesaurus and figure it out. So that's pretty much what I got for Lazarus. I can't prove that Jesus resurrected him, but I can prove that he lived and died, and when he died, he was in an ossuary box, and it was marked with the fact that he was dead for 4 days, and it was marked with the fact that he was friends with Jesus, with Christ, with Messiah, friends with Messiah. He was friends with Messiah. That's awesome. I wish I could say that. I can. But I wish I could say that I had been friends with Messiah when he lived, when he was a human being. Man, I would have loved to meet that man. That would have been awesome. Sit down and have dinner with him, just eat some bread and whatever they had back then. Drink some wine. I wouldn't talk. I wouldn't say a single thing. I would not ask him a single question. I would just listen. I would just listen to every single thing that he said. And I would never forget it. I would write it down if I could. Anyway, yeah, but he was an actual person. You know, like he ran this church, built it up. You know, he was a leader there. And he obviously told people the story about how he had been dead. Like, people believed it. And so that's why I'm going to say true. You know, all the way back to the earliest, right there, when it happened, within 40 years of it happening, he's a leader in the church. You know, 10 or 15 years after the death of Christ, he's running things in the Eastern Orthodox Church. There's some tradition that says he went over to France and started the Western Orthodox Church, but I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true because when Paul first started preaching in Philippi, you know, God was asking him to come over there because Christ wasn't there. People weren't preaching Christ there. You know, it was Eastern Orthodox. It was Cyprus. That's where it was. So anyways, that's that. You know, if you have anything you want to say, if I got something wrong, if I left something out, if you just want to chat, if you, whatever, man, there's my email. And get on my next video. God bless you guys, man. He loves you.